Welcome back for another edition of Floridaman News. This is your anchor Dallas, coming to you with the real stories of Floridaman. So sit back and enjoy. Here we go. A Florida man tried to shoot 7 puppies and ended up shooting himself when one of the dogs put his paw on the trigger. A 37-year-old Florida man was being treated at a hospital for gunshot wounds on his wrist. The Florida man decided to shoot the 3-month-old dogs because he couldn't find a home for them, according to the sheriff's office. On Monday, the Florida man was holding 2 puppies, one in one arm and one in the other, when one of the dogs in his hands wiggled and put his paw on the trigger. The .38 caliber went off, thus shooting the man in the wrist. A sheriff's deputy went to a Florida man's house when his girlfriend said that he was drunk in the living room when she got home. The girlfriend then proceeded to accompany her daughter to another home, whereupon he continued to drink and be belligerent. On the way home, she said that he started grabbing her hand and pulling her arm. Furthermore, she said he continued giving her a wet willy. If you don't know what a wet willy is, it's a prank where they spit on their finger and stick it into the victim's ear hole and turns it round and round. The daughter of the girlfriend confirmed her mother's account. He declined to give a written statement, but said he wasn't intoxicated. Does that really make it better? Just after a 68-year-old Florida man was released from jail, deputies say that they captured him on surveillance video attempting to steal 26 different vehicles in the jail's parking lot. Deputies say that the surveillance camera showed him going from vehicle to vehicle in the restricted area, pulling on the door handles, all of which were locked. The video also showed him attempting to steal 2 sheriff's vehicles, according to his arrest affidavit, with him successfully entering the bed of the Dodge Ram and hot-wiring a mule ATV used by the deputies. The sheriff's office said that he was arrested just after 10:30 p.m. He was charged with 27 accounts of auto burglary and 1 account of grand larceny. This may seem familiar to some because he attempted this before at another prison facility. A Florida man lost at sea for 14 days off the coast of Florida has been rescued by the U.S. Coast Guard. The 72-year-old Florida man was found on a small rocky inlet 200 miles off the nearest coastline, where he shipwrecked 2 weeks ago. He managed to survive off of several seagulls, mollusks, mussels, and urchin. He showed symptoms of extreme dehydration and was still under medical attention, where he was still suffering from mild hallucinations, said one reporter. He told his brother that he survived with the help of mermaids, who fed him, but who also took advantage of him sexually. He described in graphic detail how he was forced to perform oral on fish-like genitalia and other aquatic creatures, not only on the females, but also on the males. His brother added with tears that he was visibly grateful to find his brother alive. A jogger was taking a run in the neighborhood when he came across a pile of left items that was left on an unoccupied home lawn. The jogger said that a man was already there, so he decided to stop and take a look. The jogger told investigators that he found a black heavy-duty dump cart and decided to take it. The other man became upset, feeling that he had a right to the trash pile, since he was looking through it first. The investigator said that the 2 men exchanged words, but the jogger took the cart and headed home. When the jogger arrived home, he realized that he had been followed. The Florida man was carrying what appeared to be a red stick. As the man got closer, he pulled out a sword from the red sheath, beginning to swing it at the jogger as he tried to wrestle the cart away. The jogger told deputies that he left the cart in his yard, but said a woman walked up and dragged the cart away just a few minutes later. They believe that the man with the sword knows the woman who took the cart. A police officer was on patrol just around 12:30 a.m. He could hear screaming from down the street. The 40-year-old Florida man was shirtless and bleeding from his head. He was pacing and yelling outside a home. The man who owned the home said he didn't know him, but the man came up and started yelling names at him and to hit him with the beer he was holding. The Florida man punched the man's mailbox and stood in the street, still shouting threats. Fortunately, the man was not injured by the Florida man. The officer on the scene tried to talk to the Florida man, who lived a couple of blocks down the street. The Florida man did not respond to several orders to get on the ground. Instead, he tried to run from the officers, one of whom fired a stun gun at him. It had no effect. The second officer's attempt still did not stop the Florida man, who ripped the probes off his skin and continued running down the street. All the while, the Florida man continued to punch mailboxes off their post, even knocking off the side view mirrors from some of the vehicles. The officer took off after the Florida man, who suddenly stopped, turned around and started running straight toward the police officers, yelling that he could kill them. According to the affidavit, once again the officers pulled out the stun guns. The third one did not stop him. However, the fourth one and final attempt did incapacitate him. Police were able to take the Florida man into custody, where he told police the man he was yelling at jumped him. He also continued to threaten to kill the police. He apparently yelled, "Y'all don't got stuff that can slow me down. Next time, I'll have my pit bull and kill you and the police dogs." Police also quoted him saying, "Once I do some steroids, I'll be real furious." Officers also noted that alcohol was involved in the incident. Oh my goodness, alcohol being involved in this stuff? I would have never guessed it. Members of a task force received information from a citizen of the location of a fugitive that was hiding at a residence. The Florida man was wanted as a result of a culmination of significant drug investigations that led to the assurance of arrest warrants for over 100 subjects. As agents arrived to the area, they was able to confirm that the Florida man was inside the home, and they began to set up a perimeter. Subsequently to the arrival, they observed a white male leave the residence on a bicycle that matched the Florida man's description. The only exception was that the subject on the bicycle had blonde hair, apparently a wig that was used back in the 1700s by French noblemen. Not being fooled by this incredible design, agents followed the subject and eventually caught up with him. They stopped the subject. They determined that it was him wearing the blonde wig and took him into custody. The Florida man stated that he knew he was wanted, that he was wearing the wig as a disguise to avoid arrest. And you can see his wonderful portrait right here. A female homeowner that the Florida man drove a bike with red flashing lights into her front yard. He introduced himself as an FBI agent. He then ordered the woman to show proof of her ID to make sure that she was there legally. She told the man to leave her property. After the Florida man refused a second time, the husband told him to leave and that he called the police. Before leaving the property, the Florida man dropped multiple live catfish in their driveway for an unknown reason. As the Florida man was biking, the deputies stopped him because he fit the description. The deputies said that the Florida man appeared to be heavily intoxicated and was wearing a dark shirt, had an FBI hat on, and a bicycle with red and blue flashing lights. He was then taken to jail. According to the sheriff's office, a deputy handling traffic enforcement in Florida observed a blue 2013 Chevrolet pickup blow through a stop sign at 3:15 a.m. When deputies asked the man and the woman where they were coming from, they said that they were under an overpass collecting frogs and snakes. The deputy asked the man if they would open up their backpacks to make sure they hadn't collected any protected wildlife. He opened the Florida woman's bag and discovered 41 three-striped turtles in her possession. When the pair was taken out of the vehicle, the officer asked the Florida woman if she had anything else on her. Then she proceeded to pull an alligator out of her yoga pants, and she placed it in the bed of her truck. Neighbors told deputies that they heard a banging and a yelling coming from the Florida man's home on Wednesday. The man was overheard saying that he was going to kill them with kindness, according to the arrest report. Just before midnight, one neighbor decided to go over and check on things and asked him to keep it down. The man told the deputies that he came running out of the front door with a machete-style knife that had the word kindness written on the blade. Another neighbor who saw what was happening stepped in to protect the other man, but ended up getting cut on the hand. Deputies responded to the scene and used a taser on the Florida man and took him into custody. That's no ordinary rabbit. This all started when a Florida man bumped into a woman with dreads. Words were exchanged and the man started assaulting the woman. That's when the fuzzy white rabbit jumps in and puts his paws in the beatdown and put his own beating on the guy with little or no challenge. It was reported that the Easter Bunny had been taking boxing classes. Eventually the bunny brawl was broken up by local bystanders and a bike cop with the Orlando police. It's not unusual for police dogs on the job to sink their teeth into an unruly subject, but deputies in Columbia County said a 38-year-old Florida man beat their canine to the bite. Their arrest report showed that he was charged for simple battery on a law enforcement officer, resisting arrest with violence, and aggravated battery on a service dog. It all started when a woman called deputies to report the guy for meth. When the deputies arrived, they received another call from a neighbor reporting that the man was in his yard using a flashlight. The investigators saw the light and approached the subject. As they moved closer, they heard strange noises coming from a shallow creek. The arrest report said that the Florida man was making bird noises and pacing back and forth. Other than the mud that was smeared on his body, deputy says that the Florida man was completely nude. Before they could get him into custody, deputy said that he ran and hid under the stairs of a nearby mobile home. When he came out of hiding, the deputies tried to detain him, but it ended in fisticuffs. Authorities said that Watts punched the deputy, and another deputy seen enough to deploy a taser, but it didn't work. The deputy who was punched pulled out a taser too, took aim, and fired. Still nothing. As the subject ran away, authorities decided to wait for backup. 6 more deputies and a K9 unit joined them in the chase. The crew managed to catch up with the subject in the nearby woods, where apparently he got down on his hands and knees and started growling like a dog. Deputy said that the Florida man pounced the dog and bit his ear. The deputy said that he bit him on the hand, but finally giving the deputies a chance to take control. But despite being taken into custody, the Florida man remained defiant. As they let him out of the woods, the Florida man spat on one of the deputies. The local hospital treated the man's dog bites before authorities took him to the local jail. A Florida man breaks into a home and sucks on a sleeping man's toes. According to a police report, they're on a lookout for a Florida man who broke into a home and was sucking on a man's toes. The incident occurred on Christmas Eve, where the resident said when he awoke, he saw the Florida man at his feet, who then proclaimed that he broke into the house to suck his toes. He then attempted to fondle the man's feet. After the two got into a fight, the Florida man smashed a window and the victim's windshield before making an escape. No arrests have been made. Thank you very much for joining me for Florida Man News. Stay tuned for another edition, as I'll have some more of Florida Man's epic adventures. This is Dallas signing off.